can you explain what the big hang-up is with the SEC scheduling stuff? I've heard like 1,000 takes on it. It all sounds like white noise at this point. Well, there's a reason, Jimmy. That's because it is. And so in lieu of making you go to different websites and reading different articles with just a bunch of word salad thrown at you, essentially, here's what you need to know. Right now, the Southeastern Conference does not know what it wants to do with its future schedule. What is it all about? They're about to add 2 teams, okay? Oklahoma, Texas, they're coming in the back door, and all of a sudden, you're going to have a 16-team conference. Here's what I can guarantee you. Divisions are going away. It's not going to be an SEC East, SEC West world anymore. Pretty much everyone in Destin this week agreed with that. What we don't know yet is what the new scheduling format will be. That's what they're arguing over. Arguing may be a strong term. They are feverishly debating that and have been all week. Brandon Marcello from 24/7, our Brandon Marcello, he's down in Destin, indicated late this afternoon you should not expect a vote on this tomorrow, whereas previously there was at least some guidance that maybe if the week goes well, we're going to have an answer by Friday. Doesn't look like that's in the cards. So what are they arguing about? There are 2 formats. It's not really all that complicated in theory. There is the 7-1 format, and there is the 6-3 format. The 7-1 format is very simple. The 1 represents the number of fixed opponents you have. So Georgia would play Florida every year. That's their fixed opponent. And then you have 7 other games that you just rotate through, conference games. So you pretty much play the entire conference every 2 years. And then you have the other format, and that's the 6-3 format, and that would be 3 permanent fixed opponents, and then you rotate 6 conference opponents through. I'm just going to give you very quickly what stands out about each one of them. With the 7-1 format, a lot of folks, well, let me rephrase, some folks in the SEC like it because it keeps them at 8 conference games. There are some opinions in the SEC that they should not expand to 9 games. We already play in the toughest conference. Why should we voluntarily make it tougher on ourselves? That's the talking point. It's not shared by everyone, but it is shared by some people. This would, the argument is, not force a lot of programs to cancel a lot of already scheduled out-of-conference games. To give you an idea, between 2025 and 2037, the conference has a combined 182 out-of-conference games scheduled. Some of the thinking is, well, if we're going to change our conference schedule and we're going to play 9 conference games, we're going to have to cancel some of our previously scheduled out-of-conference games. Also, and this is clearly the biggest hang-up if you're a casual fan, a normal fan, you cannot have all of your longtime rivalries fixed with this model. You cannot. For example, Texas and Oklahoma are coming into the conference. They will play every year. They will be each other's fixed opponent in the 7-1 format. But you know what you would not get? You wouldn't get Texas A&M versus Texas every year, which is a no-brainer of what should happen when you're adding Texas to the conference that A&M's in. You would not get Bama, Tennessee every year. I know some of you are 20 years old and say, big deal. Well, once upon a time, children, it was a big deal, and it could be again. Point being, there are some rivalry games you'd have to give up in this format. Now, the 6-3 format has far more support. I think this is the one that's ultimately going to win out. That's the one where you play 9 conference games. That's the biggest takeaway. 3 permanent rivals, and then you got 6 rotational games. There's far more support for this. TV is rooting for it. Most fan bases and fans would root for it because it gives you a better inventory of games. It justifies the rising price you pay for tickets. It does away with one more cupcake game, if you will, per year. All rivalries are maintained in this format. What's the downside? It just sounds like a bunch of positives, right? Well, attrition is the downside because it's tough. It's easy to say, let's just add a conference game. Well, it's a lot tougher to actually do it, especially if you play in a stronger conference. They don't know what the college football playoff situation is going to be. You know, a lot of folks in the SEC have liked staying at 8 because they say, well, wait, as long as that playoff committee just looks at a win as a win and a loss as a loss, why would we voluntarily make it tougher on ourselves and lessen the percentage chance that a team's going undefeated in our conference when we don't have to, as long as that thing's at 4 teams? Now, if it expands to 12 teams, a lot of people don't have that reservation anymore, but we don't know. I just told you 5 minutes ago. No one knows what the playoff format's going to be. To give you an idea of what I mean by attrition, though, I want you to listen to this. I want you to imagine this with me. In 2026, it's not too long from now, Georgia has 3 out-of-conference games already scheduled against Georgia Tech. They play them every year. Louisville and UCLA. All those games are happening in the same year, at least as of now. If you add a 9th conference game, I just read you Georgia's entire schedule. 9 SEC games, Georgia Tech, Louisville, and UCLA. You notice what there wasn't there? There wasn't a single G5 team. There certainly wasn't an FCS team. It's just 12 games against Power 5 competition. You may think to yourself, good. What's the downside? The downside is if everyone else in the country is not doing the same thing, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but it's not fair to the poor little SEC program. And I'm sure that every one of you share that sentiment. My point is, there are some pros and cons with each. That's why they haven't arrived at a conclusion. But to go back to the question, why does it sound like white noise and how do we slice through it? Well, that's it. There are disagreements on 2 formats, and I just gave you the essential pros and cons of each one.